Replay. We take another look at this Winota CEDH deck and find out if she's resilient enough to fight back when things don't go her way. Next on Commander Replay. If you're still interested in playing paper games of Commander with me for the cost of $10 over webcam, I've added a few more dates on Eventbrite. So I've added more Saturdays, I've added a couple Fridays, and I've also added a couple Sundays into the mix. So if you guys are interested, be sure to check out the Eventbrite link. I'll post that in the description below. Welcome back, everyone. Playing some Winota Joiner Forces today, testing out my CDH deck. Not going to be a full CDH pod today, going to be like somewhere around near CDH, high power kind of thing we got going. Anyway, take a look at this opening hand. We got two lands, both are colored, that's good. Sometimes that's an issue with this deck. And some things we can cast. Pia is a non-human creature. We will need a third land for it. Okay, I think it's fine. Land count in this deck is a little bit lower than I wanted. I got it at 31 right now, and oh man, 33 or 34 would probably feel a lot better. But so many things to balance out in this deck. When you talk about like non-human creatures that you want, human creatures that you want, there are a lot of both, and when you put a lot of both, that eats up a lot of deck slots. Doesn't leave room for a lot of other things that you might need in a game of CEDH. Like this Red Elemental Blast. I've only got one of these. I would prefer to be running both of them, but did some testing with this deck a little bit earlier today, and it played decently well. It didn't win super fast. I think by the time it killed the table, it was about turn 8, but I did lock everyone down with a Winter Orb for 2 or 3 turns. That does buy you a lot of time in the scheme of things, and did survive a board wipe in there. Had a Gerard in play, which was super helpful. That's a Flamekin Village. Flamekin Village is extremely helpful. So let's go ahead and play that. It's going to be a bit of a slow start, I think, but no elementals. Kind of a tough call between that one and Hainware Battlements. Flamekin comes in tapped, but Hainware comes in untapped. Doesn't make colored mana. When you're running a low land count, it's kind of a big deal. If you got 36 or 37 lands, it's not usually a problem, but when you're down in the low 30s, like, we may only see 3 lands for a number of turns in this game. If one of them's colorless, that can hurt quite a bit. So yes, we are playing Winota Joiner Forces, 2 red-white for a 4/4. Whenever a non-human creature you control attacks, look at the top 6 cards of your library, put a human creature card from among them onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking. It gains indestructible until end of turn. Put the rest on the bottom. The most aggressive Boros commander ever? Maybe? It's really strong. Just, it doesn't take much. It does not take much. So we'll take a quick peek over at this deck list. It seems like everyone's just dropping lands right now. It's kind of a slow start for everyone. So here's what I've got right now. I've got I added a lot more stacks into the deck, and this is really what I was aiming for the last time out with this. But I was messing around with some stuff that I think was probably just a little bit too cute with Kiki Jiki and Final Fortune and stuff like that. And I think that's all like, it's all probably fine for casual, but for CEDH, where there's a lot of interaction, things have to be quick, you don't get a lot of time, things need to be efficient. I don't think that stuff's going to work, so I think this is going to be a lot more streamlined. The question I have right now is, can we still stop CEDH combos, and are we strong enough to kill things quickly? Yeah, more playtesting needed. That's a Lotus Cobra for opponent. That's a pretty good piece of ramp, especially in Korvold. Lotus Cobra is a partial out against Winter Orb. It allows them to make mana without having to tap lands, which it's a good place to be once a Winter Orb comes in. We draw a Jorkadeen. That's one of our big late game plays. I prefer not to draw that one. Maybe this deck needs a Divining Top. Prevent stuff like that. Yeah, we don't have much going on. I think we just need to get to this Pia Nalar as quick as possible. So play the Spine Rock Knoll. Get a Hideaway. Oh, Breath of Fury. Breath of Fury is interesting. No, I don't think we want to put that on. The other choices aren't great. We're losing 2 lands in there. Not a lot of lands. That's probably going to hurt a bit. So if we have to deal 7 damage, then getting the Breath of Fury, that's pretty awkward unless something's got First Strike. Jorkadeen does have First Strike. It's not unheard of. Could have used that Giver of Runes too. Yeah, that was the wrong time to Spine Rock Knoll. I'm going to go for the Giver of Runes because the Breath of Fury is honestly better in the deck, especially with our Aura Touch Mage is really where we want to be. So do that whole thing and pass the turn. So this Dire Fleet Daredevil, this is an interesting one, and this is the thing that I've been eyeing for a little while for more competitive settings where you know you're going to be looking at a lot of tutors. Someone plays Vampiric Tutor. You can now play a Vampiric Tutor from their graveyard. Pretty sweet thing. I used it last game to actually get the Winter Orb, and that's what got the lock for me, so that was pretty nice. We need to draw another land off the top. Yeah, that land count. That land count. I had Faithless Looting in the deck, but cut it because I was adding a bunch of stuff, and it's so tough figuring out exactly what you want. I mean, even if you put only Hate Bears in the deck, that's still like 30 creatures. So figuring out exactly which ones you need, just a lot of playtesting needed. I'm not the best CEDH deck builder. If I had more CEDH experience, I could probably build this deck much easier, like especially if I played a lot of Blood Pod and knew exactly which Hate Bears stop which decks and which things you need to watch out for. I'm sure I'd have a much better feel on what things I need and what things I can really live without. But, you know, since I only kind of dabble, you know, I'm just kind of feeling my way through it. It's going to take a lot of testing. Remember that time when you were new to Magic? That's what CEDH is like to me. Here comes a Phyrexian Arena for opponent. Yeah, it's a good one. That is a good one. Although maybe not for this setting. I mean, it depends on how long this game goes. This is going to be that weird type of game where in CEDH, you really don't expect the game to go long, and it's super awkward if it does, because, like, no one plays creatures, really. High power is weird, because high power games can go long, but don't. There's just, like, it feels really inconsistent. Like, someone can win quickly, but doesn't necessarily mean that they will. There's a Hokori. That's our backup winter orb, so I don't know if we needed all that in this exact second. Sensei's Divining Top. Badly needed. What you draw matters. We have a scroll rack in the deck, so we can put some of this stuff back on top if we need to and shuffle it away. So anyway, we cast the Pianalar. That does give us a Thopter. We do need to catch that land off the top. It's not the best. See if there's any spells in opponent's graveyards that'll be helpful to us. Not at this moment. In like a full CDH game, someone would have probably cast a Vampiric Tutor by now. Get their mana rock. Opponent did lay down a Corrosda Guildmage. Interesting. Ooh, that's a Cultivate. Perfect. We still need more mana, though. That is the one problem with this card, is that, alright, so if we're hard casting it, and then we need additional mana, it's kind of tough on anything that's more than, like, 1 or maybe 2, especially this early in the game. It's going to be a few turns before we can get that Cultivate. Also, ooh, no blue. I should just mulligan this hand. Red Elemental Blast, not going to do much for us. One of the big problems I've noticed fighting stronger decks is... from the Boros perspective, is you kind of have to make this choice between, do you want to be good against blue decks or do you want to be good against green decks? It's hard to be good against both. Red Elemental Blast, Pyroblast give you great answers to some blue stuff. But green requires a completely different set of tools, usually a lot of creature removal, board wipes, a Hushbringer, probably do some good stuff for you. Oh, opponent's going to shoot our land. Wow, that hurts so bad. Alright, well, I guess we're going to Curse Totem then. Glazing Guildheart for opponent. And Landfall, trigger the Guildheart, trigger the Cobra. Yup. Cindervines for opponent. Oh, that's interesting. They can destroy a Winter Orb with that. I don't know, maybe Spine Rocknull, too awkward for this deck. Oh, that's a Mana Vault. Well, let's do it. I'm going to Winter Orb. Since we are now very behind, I think it makes sense to do that, because we need to, like, draw into stuff that matters. We need to draw into lands is what we need to do, actually. So this should slow things down quite a bit and keep people from, like, just slamming their commanders. Now, Cindervines is out there. It'll probably have to shoot the Winter Orb at some point. But even still, just buying a little bit of time, I think is going to be a good thing. Mana Vault would have got us into our commander, though. That would have been a really good thing. If we Mana Vault into Jorkadeen, that'll give us Metalcraft, and that's pretty good. Let's take a look at what our opponents are playing, by the way. First up, we have Slimefoot the Stowaway being piloted by Zombie Caller 4-2. And I assume that they're just on the... I assume they're on, like, the full combo Infect version of Slimefoot, based on the fact that I told everyone to bring strong decks. So I've lost to this a few times. It always kind of catches you by surprise when it does, but it's surprisingly good. Ooh. Opponent lays down a Foundry Inspector and an Altar of Dementia. They get tagged by the Cindervines. They've got a lot of cost reduction over there. That's kind of a thing. Chaotix loses the life to the Phyrexian Arena. So, Landfall trigger. Yep, Lotus Cobra. Vampiric Tutor, there that is. Dockside Extortionist would get a 7. Thinking about doing that. Another issue with this deck is that it does not have as much removal as I would like it to have. I've had success with, like, Akiri and Bruce running Akiri and Bruce Voltron removal, basically. You shoot people's combo piece, and then you just hit them in the face really hard before they can regroup, and I've had decent success with that. I mean, I'm not saying it's the best thing ever, but it'll win games. So yeah, this deck, I'm trying to figure out if it needs to be like all in aggro or if it needs to like stacks and hate bear and just like grind the game to a halt and be super interactive. But it's difficult to get like tons of interaction. I don't know. It's a whole thing figuring out how much interaction and where the interaction should be. So, you know, more to come on all that. One tap, one land because of the Winter Orb. Surprisingly doesn't shoot it. Well, I guess they'll probably shoot it before his turn. That would make the most sense. Ooh, that's a super awkward tapped Clifftop Retreat. Well, I guess we play it. Play the Clifftop Retreat. Comes in tapped. Play the Mana Vault. Cindervines will get us. We'll attack with the flyer. I'll send one over to Chaotix. I don't even know if that makes that much sense. He's gaining life like crazy, but... Oh, we're probably going to be looking at Korvold this turn. Yeah, shoot this thing. Shoot Winter Orb on the end step. And then probably Korvold. This opponent gets an Inventor's Fair trigger. They'll gain some life. Looking at a deck like this is where you start to think about something like maybe a Stony Silence. You know, it's just difficult. It's difficult to balance out all the interaction. Looked at stuff like Stony Silence, Blood Moon, Rest in Peace. Our deck doesn't use the graveyard really, so we can shut off graveyard decks, which could be pretty good. Just a lot of choices to make. A lot of choices to make. Here comes Teshar. Can I sacrifice the Mannequin, mill Chaotix? Ooh, puts a Field of the Dead in the graveyard. Nice. No one wants that. That card is ridiculous. Gleaming Barrier into play. When it dies, create a treasure token. Interesting. Oh, yeah, I guess that's pretty good. I guess that is pretty good. If you had... I'm sure that probably creates a loop somehow, somewhere. And that does bring back the Mannequin with Teshar in play. Culling Dais for opponent. Cindervines will get them. I think we're going to have a tough choice coming up on our turn. So, with the Direfleet Daredevil, land off the top could be Winota. Winota for one trigger is, like, fine. But with the Direfleet, we could go for this Cultivate, and I think that would help us out quite a bit. We could also look at going for a Dockside Extortionist, which is going to be more of a burst of mana, but isn't going to help us so much over a longer game, where the Cultivate's going to be better for the longer game. Chaotix loses life to Phyrexian Arena. Ooh, that's a Crucible of Worlds. Here comes the Field of the Dead. What does it take, 7? That'll be his 5th land. We've got a little bit of time. Not a ton. Gets a land, gets a Lotus Cobra, gets a Gladeheart trigger. Unfortunately, Mannequin... Well, I guess this thing has an activated ability also. Slimefoot has an activated ability. We're going to tap one land. Let's go for the Clifftop Retreat. Get the double mana. Oh, right. I was thinking the Winter Orb would get shot. It hasn't. So, we're not going to have the mana that I was suspecting that we'd have. I thought, ooh, that's a land. Nice. We can get Winota with that. That seems good enough to me. Play the Bloodstained Mire, crack the Bloodstained Mire. Get Plateau. This is also a situation where we could go Direfleet on the Cultivate. Think I'm going to go for Winota. Winota puts pressure, which exactly the right call right here. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Kind of depends on what opponents have. If removal comes down, it was the wrong answer. But, I mean, someone's going to shoot Winter Orb eventually. And Winter Orb into tapping all our lands for Cultivate is, like, not the best. One colorless floating, can't do much with it. Swing into Chaotix. Get a Winota trigger. Come on, something good. Wow, whiff. Whiff. There was a Grenzo and a bunch of our lands and mana rocks. Ouch. That shouldn't happen with how many humans are in this deck. It's north of 20. It's going to hurt real bad if someone wipes the board now. Opponent's going to putrefy the Winter Orb, so Winter Orb finally going to go down. Opponents will get some mana. Someone mentioned using Captain's Claws in their Winota deck, and that's something worth checking out because that's more durable than a creature because it's an artifact. So even if the board gets wiped and you only have humans left, you can still make non-human tokens. That's something to investigate. I mean, it's not the most OP artifact ever. Like, it's not Feast and Famine, and, you know, if you're going that route, you probably want to throw a Feast and Famine in there as well. Oh, here comes a Casualties of War. Gonna go Winota, Mana Vault, Cindervines, and Inventor's Fair. I don't love that we're taking 2 of those. At least it wasn't the land. But I guess on the other hand, we don't really have, like, a plan for Mana Vault. On the other hand, that was providing toward our Metalcraft count for Jorkadeen. We're now down to 1 artifact, which is not amazing. Yeah, I probably should have went for the Cultivate. Crap. Land off the top into the Direfleet Cultivate. Opponent's going to sacrifice their Implement of Improvement, gain 2 life, draw a card. They sacrifice something to the Calling Dais. That's got a counter on it, so they're going to start drawing cards, and that's a pretty good place to be right now. Things have stalled a bit, but I don't know. I don't know if that trend will continue if Korvold comes down next turn. We really needed to not whiff last turn. Scrabbling Claws for opponent. Ooh, there's one I haven't seen in a while. Tap it. Target player exiles a card from their graveyard. Pay 1. Sacrifice it. Exile target card from a graveyard. Draw a card. Generally less effective than Relic of Progenitus. Relic of Progenitus, usually where you want to be these days, but they're probably running both, I would imagine. Opponent's going to draw with the Culling Dais. I think it was 1. Sky Scanner. Yep, draw more cards. Opponent's going to exile our Winter Orb. That's not coming back. We don't have great ways to get it back. I think Misspell Plains to the bottom is probably the best way. Could put a Goblin Welder in the deck for that sort of thing, but haven't done it yet. Goblin Welder would be really good against the Teshar opponent. Start messing with their stuff. Ooh, opponent puts a Helm of Awakening into the graveyard. See if they bring that out. That would help us a lot, given our mana situation. Wayfarer's Bauble. Get back the Sky Scanner. Draws a card. Arena Trigger for Chaotix. I'm sure he's going to have a big turn right here. He's been drawing cards for a while. Has the Cobra. 7 cards in hand. Korvold in the command zone. It's all scary. It's all really scary. Comes a Solemn Simulacrum, just going for more value first. I'd take a Solemn Simulacrum right now. And so that becomes a problem when you build a deck for CEDH, and then you get into this like long game. We're on turn 7 now, and it doesn't look like anyone's super close. Teshar, probably not too far away, but I'd imagine maybe 2 more turns. Building your deck to go turn 4 or turn 5 is very different than building it to go turn 7, because in a turn 4 deck, you're not going to play Solemn Simulacrum. If you're planning the game to go 7 or 8 turns, Solemn Simulacrum looks pretty good. Also means you're probably going to up your land count significantly, so yeah. Sylvan Carry added into play for opponent. Ooh, that's a land. Alright, play the Sacred Foundry. And I think we have to go Dire Fleet on Cultivate right here, because we need mana. Get Cultivate. Cast Cultivate. Get a Plains and a Mountain. Poke into the Slimefoot opponent. Mana Geyser isn't like the best card for CDH, but if CDH slows down just a hair, which it might with Flash Hulk on, it could get a little bit better. But on the other hand, too, a lot of instants in CDH, so like people don't just tap out and pass their turn. So I'm thinking about a card like maybe Seething Song right now. The deck still needs more ramp. That's something that I need to figure out. Like, need to figure out where the ramp is coming from. Maybe we just need to put the Iron Mirror, Gold Mirrors type of stuff back in. So yeah, still a lot of questions. Still trying to figure out exactly what this deck wants to be. Because you could do something like run a ton of 1 and 2 mana ramp, and then kind of skimp on 4 and 5 drops and really try to get a lot of the 6 drops that hit hard. Now you have to be very careful about how you balance that, but maybe it's worth trying to get 1 or 2 big things as opposed to having many small things, just from like a game impact perspective. And especially like if you have the ramp, if you're going on a game plan that is to try and slow things down anyway, then maybe all that stuff makes sense. Guild Globe for opponent. Enters the battlefield, draw a card, sacrifice it, add 2 mana of different colors. Yeah. Draws a card. Opponent cycles a desert. Sacrifices the Sky Scanner to the altar. Mills more. Ooh, puts a Dusk to Dawn in their graveyard. That's a little scary. Right now it's just the return mode, so I guess they can't blow our stuff up, but even the return mode can be good. Is that all creatures? From your graveyard, okay. Would not help us any. And it looks like they might be going for that. Mills themselves more. Cast Mentor of the Meek. Card that I've been really questioning for this deck. It's just super mana hungry, and like, this deck has mana issues. That's a thing that it has. It doesn't produce excess amounts of mana very easily. Opponent's gonna bring back that Glade Barrier. Yep. Casting a Trusty Pack Beast. Enters the battlefield. Return target artifact from your graveyard to your hand. Oh, that's pretty good. That is pretty good. There were like more expensive versions. There were 4 mana cards like that, but they get pretty pricey when you're trying to do like combo-y things. Opponent's gonna sack that and mill. Yeah, they can just like... Ooh, that's an Hour Revelation. They can put a good portion of their deck into the graveyard, I think. Cast the Gleaming Barrier, Mentor of the Meek. Yeah, oh, we might have to hook Hori. If removal doesn't happen right here, we might have to lock the lands. Part of me wants like something that combos with his Dire Fleet. If we can just blink this thing a few times, get like an Eldrazi Displacer. I know it takes a lot of mana to do that, but you know, you start just using stuff from opponent's graveyard, it's going to have a pretty good time. Opponent's getting that Helm of Awakening. That would help us a lot. But do they go infinite if that comes down? Mentor of the Meek trigger. Doesn't look like any mana. Sacrifices the Gleaming Barrier. Yep, treasure token. Mills with the altar. Here comes the Helm. Let's see how bad this gets. Gets the Pack Beast back. Oh yeah, opponent's infinite. Yep, good game. Alright. Alright, so things didn't go that well for us this game, but that's okay, because that's where you learn a lot about your deck. Now, I'm actually showing these games in the reverse order that I filmed them, so I have made a bunch of changes to the deck between the first game and the second game. So I added some of the mirror back into the deck to test out some more of that. Got Sensei's Divining Top into the deck because like I said, what you draw matters, and you really want to stay away from the bigger stuff that you're hoping to get into play for free. So some amount of filtering there is going to be a good thing. Still on 31 lands. I'd love to get it to 32. Did add a land tax into the deck. Somehow I forgot to add that in at some point, but land tax would have helped us out a bunch this game. But as far as a more general sense about what I think about this deck and its CEDH capabilities, there's one big thing that's been jumping out at me over the past couple games that I've tested with it, and that's that you're using a lot of your deck slots to be able to do the human, non-human thing. I've got 37 creatures right now. I've seen some other lists around 32 or 33. In all cases, you're probably going to be north of 30. So it's just a lot of creatures and a lot of deck slots. And that does not leave a ton of room for interaction, and CDH is all about interaction. So the big question is, if you're running that many creatures, how do you stop a consultation from going off? How do you stop a Gitrog from going off? How do you stop a Selvala from going off? All three of those things generally require different answers, and it's tough to make sure you have the right thing at the right time. I still don't know how Bloodpod does it, and I'm sure it's because there's like black and green and they have a bunch of tutors in there, but I still don't figure out how they don't lose the game super quickly on account of those other combos going off so that they can do their thing and assemble their combo. And maybe it's just a deck that I need to play and really try to get that understanding of it, because I think this deck is going to share a lot of similarities with that one, going on the Hate Bear plan and slowing people down that way, and then just using Winota to generate absurd amounts of value. And I don't know, maybe it's worth bringing the Kiki-Jiki combo back in, because I think we can do that in 3 to 4 cards. I would need to add... I've only got one Recruiter in the deck right now. I was cutting them for deck slots, again, high creature count. So maybe putting the second Recruiter back in, and that will also help us get the right Hate Bear that we need. But again, that assumes that you're hitting it with Winota and not hard casting it, so that's also a big difference. But maybe Kiki-Jiki's worth adding back into the deck, because I have noticed even over the past couple games, even where things have gone really well, it's still not super fast to kill everyone with damage. Like, it still takes a little while, 6, 7, 8 turns. 6 is actually very quick. I've killed one table in 6 turns or less. I think it was on turn 5. And I forget how I did it. It might have been the combo. I think it was a combo. But yeah, it's not super easy to just damage everyone out of the game that quickly. Maybe a Throne of the God Pharaoh, that actually seems like a pretty good source of damage on 2 mana. That's one to think about. I'm still trying to figure out the 6 drops, but yeah, my big concern is that you're running so many creatures that it becomes difficult to stop other combos. In this exact second, I actually cut both of the Red Elemental Blast cards, and I personally would love to be running both of those, but again, there's just not room to do everything you want to do. So the biggest question is really figuring out which cards underperform, getting rid of those, and bringing other stuff in, because there's always other options. It's just figuring out which is the right one. But I do have some concerns about this deck. What this deck does is very powerful, but it requires a lot of deck slots, which is something that's really bad for CEDH, because you need to be holding up interaction to stop other people from going off. And the other thing is that Winota is super fragile, and that she needs to be in play, otherwise this deck is not going to do that much. So I'm thinking about getting some Lightning Greaves in here as well. We need ways to protect our commander. That's just a thing that has to happen. We can't get it bounced or shot. It's going to be a really bad time, and this deck is not going to do that much without it. And that's probably also another big drawback to it for the CDH style of play, because, you know, if your commander gets shot once, let's just say twice. If your commander gets shot twice, you're probably out of the game, unless you're in just some very strange game that goes really long, which, sure, it does happen from time to time, but it's very rare that no one else can get their combo off. So I'm not loving how fragile Winota can be in that sense. But the upside of the deck is so high that I still think that this deck can compete. It's just that it does have some weakness about it. So maybe that keeps it out of tier 1, keeps it into kind of the lower tiers. That's my general take on where I see this right now. It's probably a lower tier CEDH deck because of the reliance on Winota and the amount of deck slots that you use in order to get enough creatures into your deck. It creates some weakness to the deck, as well as having a high upside. So a lot of power, but also a lot of weakness. I guess that's fair, right? But anyway, what I'm also going to do, one of my Patreons has also been working on Winota CEDH, so I'm going to include their deck link in the description below. You can check out their deck list, see what choices they made differently than the choices I made, so you kind of have 2 different things to look at. We've been talking about it back and forth a little bit, and still, he's got slightly few creatures than me, and I think a few more lands, which I'd love to be in that world. I actually feel pretty good about that. So yeah, anyway, be sure to check those out. Hope you guys liked the video. As always, feel free to comment, like, or subscribe. Thank you for watching. I want to thank my awesome Patreon supporters. We have one new Patreon supporter in Austin Gusenhoven. Austin, you are awesome. If you want to help support the channel and vote on which decks I play next, feel free to check out my Patreon at the link below. And be sure to use the TCG affiliate player link, as it helps support the channel and it doesn't cost you anything.